Are we recording? Okay, hi guys, sorry, I don't know, like, I had to do a millennial pause there for a second. Today we're gonna do something really, really fun, which is gonna be a Q&A. I feel like in every single video, I'm complaining about my camera and how quickly it overheats. I technically already started this video, so it might overheat faster. So sorry if this video gets cut off randomly. I might finish it on my phone. Well, actually I can't because the questions are on my phone. Beside the point, if you want to be following along, my social media is gonna be my name on both platforms. On Instagram, there's a dot, although I need to remove the dot. I don't know why I left it there. So it's Paris.Mondois, and then on TikTok, it's Paris Mondois. So I asked on socials for you guys for your questions, and I got a lot more than I thought I would. So I don't know how I'm gonna break this up. It might have to be multiple videos, or I'll answer some of the questions directly on my socials. We will see. But I'm also currently chilling. I was gonna say chilling and hanging out, and then it came out as hill of chilling. Beside the point, I'm chilling with a baby. There's a baby in the bed right here. I'm not gonna show you because I respect her privacy, but there's a baby here and she's sleeping. So I'm gonna talk a little bit lower here, but she's honestly fine with like sound, so we should be okay. But babysitting for a family friend, but the show must go on. The show must go on. But for those of you guys who say that I talk too fast, which I am aware that I talk too fast, I'm really apologetic about that. It's my natural tone of speech. Maybe that'll help by me having to be just a little bit quieter today. We'll see. Anyway. Let's dive into the questions. There's so many of them. How to get over internalized homophobia is question number 1. I do think it's really important to give yourself a lot of time to be able to reflect and sit and process those emotions. There's about a year between when I came out and when I like actively started dating, and that was very necessary. I spent a lot of that year very depressed and engaging in very dysfunctional coping mechanisms, but I don't think that I would have been in a space where I was ready to start dating if I started dating when I came out. So I think it's okay to spend some time being sad, just spend some time mourning, spend some time having to really consider what the future is going to look like now that you've realized this piece of information about yourself, and to not rush into needing to exist in the romantic world. I definitely had an intrigue around dating, but I think I knew on some level that I wasn't really ready to do that. And in my video, I made how I stopped hating being a lesbian. That's the title of it. I talk about when I started dating. I give my whole story more in depth, and ultimately I think the best piece of evidence to getting over internalized homophobia is to have positive romantic experiences, because I feel like they disprove that internalized homophobia narrative that there's something wrong with you, that being a queer person is like a bad thing, that it's gross, ugly, whatever, you know, because then I feel like for a long time for me being a lesbian just meant disappointing people, and it wasn't until I had positive romantic experiences that I started to disprove that narrative. So that's what I would recommend. In an ideal situation, how do you think society would have to move forward to dismantle the patriarchy? I get really broad questions. I don't know if that's too vague of a question. Sorry, I love you, Paris. Love you guys. So I would say that if we want to move forward in a productive way, the first thing that comes to mind, because there's so much we can get into, is having to hand full autonomy to mothers. Here's my thing. I think that the vulnerability of motherhood and putting women in a position where they have to financially rely on a man in order to take care of their kids is a very intentional setup by the patriarchy, to make it so that a man can essentially treat a woman however, but so long as she is pregnant or she has a child, she is I don't know if you heard her, she's like made a little noise anyway, but she's still kind of like reliant on him and still feels the need to stick around, and feels unsafe to leave, right? So a lot of the time, when you have a baby, you're very vulnerable. When you're in the early days of motherhood, you're very vulnerable, and you really need a man not only to help you financially, but to feel safe, and to, especially since we put so much judgment on women when they do leave their husbands or leave men, the fathers of their children. We have a crazy high child support debt in this country. Men are not made to pay the money that they owe the mothers of their children, which is another way that I think women really get punished. The courts also have been famous for, family courts, for allowing abusive men access to their children, which is kind of like another way that we punish women. Just kind of say like, don't fall out of line, let that man treat you however he wants to treat you, and still allow him access to his children. And I think giving women complete and full autonomy in motherhood is a really, really big thing that we can do to set women free and allow them to be able to engage with men on their own terms. Kind of acknowledging that pregnancy and motherhood is a vulnerability for women. It's a beautiful thing, but it does leave them vulnerable in their current setup, and the way that we aid that vulnerability is by giving them autonomy. So I think that autonomy would look like the government paying for the labor when you go to a hospital and you give birth, paying for that, because of course here in the US that's not free. no medical treatment is free. Paying for like baby clothes, food, formula, diapers, clothing, nannies, having like women who can come to the house and like clean your home, cleaners, people who will do your laundry, like make it so that having a baby is not a financial burden on a woman at all, and that she can receive adequate care and adequate support for having a child, so that she doesn't need to rely on a man. And if she winds up in an abusive situation with a man, she does not have to stay with him, because she's not like relying on him in order to support her child. And of course, you know, I know this one's kind of broad, but just like working on our social punishment or our social judgment of women who like don't have their father or their children around. That's a really big one. And then also just like adequately punishing men for their crimes against women. There are way too many men who are convicted sex offenders who are walking free. They need to spend a lot of time behind bars, and for men to know that if you hurt a woman, there is a real punishment, that she will be believed, and that you will go to jail for a very long time, and your reputation will be completely scarred. I think that's like really, really important as well. Do you listen to Megan Thee Stallion? Yes, I do. I think Rocksteady is my favorite song with Phil Millie. Do you like Yellow Jackets? Have you seen it? Lesbians eating each other? I started watching the Yellow Jackets on the plane to Switzerland, and then I only got a few episodes in. I don't know why. It's like kind of right up my alley. I love like end of the world, crazy dystopian stories, and I love lesbians. So I don't know why I stopped watching. I'm just not really a show person. I think I watch more movies. But yeah, maybe I should get back into it. I didn't know the lesbians started eating each other, so I will stream now. I will. When did you first start resonating with radical feminism? Probably the moment that it was presented to me. I think I was so disillusioned by liberal feminism and this idea that like beauty practices are like empowering, that like pornography is like a not problematic industry at all. I like just had a lot of like cognitive dissonance with like the liberal feminist ideas that were being presented to me, and I felt like no one was really getting to the heart of the issue. And as someone who's not attracted to men, I feel like I had a lot of feminist ideas already in like hot takes in my head, but I just kind of thought that I was being maybe the feminist too woke, or I just thought that like, I don't know, that like no one else thought the way that I did. And finding radical feminism, I just felt like I was getting a lot of answers to questions that I always had, or to like a sense of disillusionment that I always felt. How to stop thinking in a sort of third perspective and start thinking like myself, not what others are seeing. Also how to stop always trying to look attractive to others, especially men, and just to see myself and think about myself like myself. I don't know if that makes sense. Okay, so I think it's about it's kind of like that Margaret Atwood quote. She's so cute. Margaret Atwood quote that's like like a woman is a man perceiving a woman, something along those lines, if you know that quote. And I think that's what this person's getting at, is like seeing yourself through the lens of a man, and essentially the question being like, how do you try to get away from that? That's something that's very, very difficult, something that I still struggle with all the time. And I think that the best way is probably removing the men that are in your life, especially if there's like men who are not like, if you have obviously like a very life-giving beautiful friendship with a man, or you know, beautiful relationship with a man. You know, I love my father, shout out to my father, shout out to my uncles. I have a lot of great men in my life actually, so more than I think people tend to expect. I think people like see me as a feminist and they're like, baby. Okay, maybe there's a way I can hold her without. Okay, sorry guys, hold on. Okay, we're back. So I would definitely start off by saying to like remove any men that are not providing, you know, useful energy to your life. If you have a man that's making you second guess yourself, make you do things that you're uncomfortable with, and trying to spend less and less time with men like that is really important. And then starting to like cultivate your own interests. So I feel like I have been able to have a generally good, I don't want to say sense of self, because I've definitely had like periods in my life where I was deeply insecure, but I think it's useful to connect back to like, I feel like because I've always had passions and I've always kind of known what my goal in life is. I've always loved to write. Yeah, like my only goal has only ever been able to do it professionally. So I feel like having the connections to my passions and knowing the things that I love doing and spending a lot of time doing those things has been really important, like has been really useful in me cultivating a sense of self and me knowing who I am. And so I think it's really important to focus on what do you love, what do you like, what feels authentic to you, what doesn't feel performative, what doesn't feel like you know, your investment in that thing is only oriented around other people's validation of it. And I think a good way to discover that, if that's not obvious to you, is to experiment, to try new things, by yourself, and you know, to do it without like without announcing it to the world, without needing like other people's input and support and validation and like stamp of approval, you know what I mean? So I think because it's just so hard. It's like, I don't know if you necessarily ever get to a point in your life where you stop caring about validation. You stop caring about, especially as women, you know, like kind of having that like male gazy perception of yourself. Like, do I look hot? Do I look sexy? Like, it's just, you know, those thoughts are often there. But I will say, one thing that did help me a lot in the periods of my life where like those thoughts were the quietest was when I was like the least conventionally attractive. And I know that's advice nobody wants, but when I stopped, when I was bald, when I was letting myself gain weight, and I was also doing that while learning about feminism and learning about the ways in which we're socialized to be obsessed with our appearance, baby, I had a very mentally free brain. And so that's honestly something I'd really recommend, is like disengaging from beauty practices and like stop playing into it, essentially. That's my advice. So sorry if that's not entirely useful. What is your opinion on religion and feminist conversations? As I'm sure you know, religion can oftentimes be misogynistic and be in favor of men over women. So I would just like to hear your thoughts on that. I was gonna make a video about religion and feminism, and then I stopped because I was like, I don't know if I have the take people want me to have. Now, I think that the patriarchal element of like, at least Abrahamic faiths, so we're talking about like Christianity, Islam, Judaism, is very obvious. You have very explicit doctrine around, you know, women submitting to men and women needing to cover up, a lot of like kind of blatant punishment for women's sexuality, more, you know, than men's. Do I think that there are some elements that might be, you know, an equalizer? Sure. Like, I do think that religion in a lot of ways helps to sort of control men, satiate men, give men a framework to understand their behavior. You know, you say you need to take a wife and you need to be loyal to her and you need to take care of your children and lead a household and be a good man, be a good example. I think that that's something that is useful for some men to hear, to get like a framework around how to control their behavior. But there also is like a lot of downsides of it that I think are like problematic that we have to think about. I will say, I guess the part of my like take on religion that I think is maybe not what people expect from me. I grew up in a religious household. I grew up a devout believer and lover of Christ. I read the Bible cover to cover. I listen to worship music. Like my worship songs are probably like my top played songs, more than like pop music or whatever. Most years, I loved God. I would spend like hours a day. There was points where I spent hours a day in prayer, and I would like write letters to God. I loved God, and I still love religion, and I still love faith, and I don't necessarily consider myself affiliated in any way, one way now. You know, I've deconstructed a lot of things, but I love God still. Like at my core, I'm still completely enamored by like the divine, and I think that belief in something bigger than you is something that you cannot quite control. And so I think that it's hard to kind of say that like feminism is antithetical, you know, full stop, with a belief in something higher than you, because I think we prevent a lot of people who might have interesting things to contribute to feminist conversations from being able to participate. So I'm not of the belief that being a religious person makes you stupid. I'm not of the belief that like being a religious person is like something embarrassing or something you should hide, or it makes it so that you can't be a feminist. But I think it's about having to understand that we kind of have to respect people's relationship to divinity and understand that for a lot of people that's quite sacred, and that, you know, like to not really try and put morality on that, but instead to say, how can we have a belief or a relationship with the divine if that is something that resonates with you, in a way that is like conducive to the well-being of other people, you know? And so I, at some points, especially during my very Christian eras, and I started to also kind of get into feminism and get into politics and whatever, was having to like rework how I understood God. And I believe that God is fully for the well-being and safety and success and happiness of women, and is completely against and disappointed in the ways in which anyone who's against that, and the ways in which the kind of violence that has been inflicted upon women by men. And yeah, I don't really like have any strong religious affiliation. Like I'm saying, I'm not like, I don't know where I stand honestly in my belief. That's still something that I'm like deconstructing and figuring out and whatever, but I do often look back. Sorry if I'm really, if the light is really dark on me today, but the light is dark on me. If I'm dark, if there's not enough light on me today, sorry. Yeah, so maybe one day I'll report back when I have who is God? Let me tell you about God. Maybe one day. Actually, I don't think I'd ever do that, but I just want to say, personally, I'm not really, asserting any belief about anything. Like, I'm letting you have whatever you have, but I do respect people's, like, relationship with the divine, is essentially what I'm saying. I got a lot of questions about like educating yourself, becoming more feminist. I learned a lot from the internet, I'm not gonna hold you. I learned a lot from like following radical feminists on like TikTok, on Twitter back in the day. I like, you know, I read Andrea Dworkin, I read Betty Friedan, who did I read? I read a lot of like essays from random people. Yeah, I maybe I should just like put a list of like different influencers and like people that I've found in whatever corners of the internet that helped me a lot. But yeah, like honestly, like a lot of it happened online for me. I was like really radicalized on the internet. And yeah, so I recommend like just staying in those online spaces. That a lot can be learned. And also I think like, this is gonna sound like such a cop-out answer, but I really am being honest. Affirm your disillusionment, okay? I think that like, there were so many feminist things that I was learning that I was like, at my core, at my gut, this always felt weird to me, but I didn't feel like I was allowed to say that. And I think that like getting to a space where I was like being told, I was having other people say those things, I was like, wait, I always had that thought, but now I feel safe enough to say it. Getting to a space where I was like, I am going to tell myself that my thoughts are I'm allowed to have my thoughts, I'm allowed to have my feelings, I'm allowed to respect the things that don't make sense to me or the things that I feel like I'm against. That was such like a huge part of becoming a feminist and like, you know, building my feminist framework. We're overheating, you guys. I told you this was gonna happen. I go, how to be well-spoken. That's a question I get a lot. I write a lot. I journal every single day. I'll show you guys my journal collection one day because it's actually really pretty. But I journal all the time and I write all the time. I have over 100 essays up on Substack. And I think always having to put my thoughts into words creates the habit of knowing what it is I'm talking about, knowing what it is I'm feeling. And then also just like I've written a lot of fiction. So I think I know a lot of like having to create storylines and like say things that make sense. So I think that I just kind of might have kind of lucked out with kind of having an interest and a passion that makes it so that articulating myself is easier. But I think broadly speaking, like even just picking up like a journaling habit can make the average person like have a much easier time knowing how to be well-spoken or knowing how to explain what it is you're thinking. Sorry if I'm like rushing through this. This camera will abandon me very soon. Oh my god, my question is, what do you do when you want to take a break from being a thought daughter? I think I'm gonna end on this because I love this question. Do you ever not want to think and just be? For example, I'll just float on my back in the pool and just focus on that, but I'd be intrigued to hear what you do. Oh my god, what do I do when I want to stop being a thought daughter? I feel like my brain's always going because also, I mean, I got monetized on TikTok in January, and I feel like ever since this became my job, it has unfortunately lived rent-free in my brain all the time, needing to think things and explain things to cameras. So I think having to take time away is very intentional. I love music, I love song lyrics, and I have a project right now that I don't have my journal with me. Actually I do. Can I show it to you guys? Can my camera wait? Will my camera wait? It's here. Okay. It's Lana Del Rey. And in it I printed out all of her lyrics and then I annotate them, and I started to formulate the theory with her music. Well, actually I was watching an interview of hers and she said that she sees her music as every single album as documenting a point of her relationship with the American dream. I hope that made sense. As I was just talking about being well-spoken. But I was really intrigued by that. And I'm really intrigued by the American dream and people's relationship with being an American, and Lana and her music and her writing. So I'm trying to I kind of want to go through her music and expand on that theory that she presented, or that thesis that she presented. So this is something that I do to unwind. That doesn't really have to do with being a thought daughter, but also kind of does. I don't know if I'm ever unplugged, and I think what I'm realizing is I need to do that. Okay, I think that's all of TikTok. Let's go to Instagram. Do I have any siblings? Yes, I have one sister. She's 9 years older than me. Her name is Kava. Maybe I think I've made some videos about her, but I don't think I've ever tagged her. I don't know if she wants me to do that, but she's really cool. Shout out to my sister. Do you believe ignorance is bliss? Like, do you ever find it exhausting knowing so much? Yes. I think specifically, I'm assuming this question is coming in relation to feminism. I do find it really exhausting knowing things. And I said before, I think it was during the Coachella, the Somebody Come Get Her, she's dancing like a stripper performance, and everyone's like, I wish I was there, Swaychella, Swaychella. And I was like, I don't find the lyrics, Somebody Come Get Her, she's dancing like a stripper, that fun. I don't like listening to that. I think my feminist brain, it's peeping. So it makes it so difficult, especially with music and rap music. It makes it very difficult. Goodbye. It makes it very difficult, I think, to engage in media. So I do feel like it's sometimes not fun to know very many things. So yeah, but ultimately I'll always choose being knowledgeable. I think it's important to be woke. Stay woke. Stay woke. Someone asked me capitalism, socialism, or communism. I have no idea. That is not something I'm well versed on at all. I think there's a lot of issues with capitalism. I cannot suggest to you a better alternative because I know nothing. Are you straight? No. I am straight to the next question because that is the furthest thing from what I am. Do you think women could be liberated under capitalism? And do you want to be friends? Of course. I'm always open to friends. Also, if you live in LA, hit me up because I'm moving to LA in September and I want to make more friends over there. Especially if you're going to UCLA. Do you think women can be liberated under capitalism? Well, I think the idea is that like capitalism is always like exploiting the labor of the working class, and I think like women definitely have their labor exploited under that framework. I mean, yeah, like women were kept actually from working because we're working and making a wage. We were always working, right? Like you're working in the home, you're working in your community, you're always contributing your labor, but then that just wasn't getting paid for because it wasn't seen as real labor. And if you're a stay-at-home mom and you like try to get back into your field, it's very difficult to do because like people don't really validate stay-at-home mothers and like finish my point on here, but people don't really validate stay-at-home mothers and really see what they're doing as like useful labor, which is a way in which I guess like the labor of women is being exploited. So, but also I do kind of think that like all people and like all working classes people's labor is exploited in some capacity. So like I said, not an economics major. I think this is economics. I don't even know if it's economics. I'm not even gonna hold you. Like this is not my domain. I'm sure that there is a relationship between patriarchy and capitalism. I can't really tell you much about it. I think there's someone more knowledgeable out there on it. So yeah, I guess that's kind of an underwhelming question to land on because I'm kind of sitting here saying I actually have no idea what's going on. So maybe I'll get one more question that's like more, that I feel like I can depart you with some wisdom, you know? Ask me what my why is, which is such a sweet, wholesome question. So I'm gonna end with that one. I would say that my why, and I'm once again assuming that this is in relation to making content, my why is that I felt crazy for such a long period of time looking at the way that people spoke and the way that like certain feminist conversations were being had, and I felt like there had to be a better answer that acknowledged the full dignity and humanity of women and contextualized our life experiences better. And so I was really wanting to offer that to other people because like I think I had some understanding, some like guttural, some instinctual knowing that I wasn't alone in feeling crazy and that people were going to hear and like understand and resonate with me. So yeah, that's my why. And thank you for watching this video. Sorry, that was underwhelming, I'm sorry. But yeah, thank you, bye-bye.